taking three.
Going for the St. Louis now.
Oh no!
Son of a bitch.
You get your two?
Yeah. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thotgor here, of course, and today we are taking a look at a replay submitted by Smithford, one of the subscribers to the channel. Excuse me, to the channel here. So thank you so much for sending in this, sending in the replay, Smithford. This was actually a really great replay. It was quite great to watch. So you can see we're in the Clemson today, and we are on Big Race. Little history about the of the Clemson here, in case you weren't aware. I mean, obviously she was referred to as a flush decker or a four-stacker destroyer, right? And she was really the last class of destroyer that the Americans made before starting to pump out the Fletcher class destroyer in great numbers. The Clemson also, this was the destroyer that was used to trade with the British for the Destroyers for Bases Agreement. This would be before the Americans joined World War II. And then obviously the British took the Clemson destroyers, made some modifications to it, and came out with the Town class, is what those Clemson served as under the Royal Navy. Now, something interesting that I found out as well was that the Clemson class destroyer actually served in the Japanese Imperial Navy. Yes. So you might be going, oh, what the hell is that, Thotgor? Well, what happened was one of the Clemson class destroyers did sink off the coast of the Philippines, I believe. And the Japanese came along, refloated her, and then used her as a destroyer in the Japanese fleet, which is pretty interesting, pretty cool. And at the end of World War II, the Japanese then went ahead and surrendered their Clemson-class destroyer back to the United States Navy. Now, not only serving with the Imperial Japanese Navy, the Clemson-class also served with the Royal Navy, the U.S. Coast Guard, the Royal Canadian Navy, who else? Oh, and the Soviet Navy. Yes, that's correct, the Red Navy. So she had quite an interesting career here. Most notably, the U.S. wanted to convert the Clemson, or actually the Clemson is just an upgraded version of the Wickets. So essentially what they did was they removed a few boilers out of the Wickets, which then created the space and freed up some tonnage to add extra depth charge racks, which was something that the Americans really wanted to do to the Clemsons, was make sure that they had excellent anti-submarine warfare capabilities. The issue, though, with the Clemsons came with her stern, apparently. The stern made for an excellent ability to drop depth charges as the stern sort of tapered into the sea. The problem was that the turning radius of the Clemson was not good enough because of this stern, because the stern would drag in the sea during a high-speed turn, and it made the turning radius really, really large. Now, it was proposed to redesign the stern and increase the size of the rudder on the ship. I believe the rudder increase on the ship was made. That modification was made to some Clemsons. However, the redesigned stern was never completed and never added to any of the ships, as it just seemed useless for the Americans, because they were now creating the Fletcher class destroyer, which would obviously eventually become the mainstay of the U.S. Navy and their destroyer fleet. Anyway, little bit of history there on the Clemson. We can see we have another Clemson in front of us who just got exploded, so excellent job there. The guns on this Clemson when she's fully upgraded with the dual mounted, I think they're dual mounted 5 inchers. They might be dual mounted 4 inchers, not 100% sure. But they are spectacular at this tier. I don't have many bad things to say about the Clemson, or for that matter, the Isakaze at tier 4. I think both of these destroyers are amazing destroyers. Really, really fun to play. So you can see we have another enemy destroyer here. This is a Russian destroyer, the tier 4 Russian destroyer, I believe. We've got torpedoes on the way, and there we go. Russian destroyer gone. 2 kills now for Smithford. So we do know that there's a third destroyer in that smoke, right? We saw quickly, but obviously the destroyer's in the smoke. There he is again, so we're not getting, or rather we couldn't see him there fully to get some guns off. But doesn't matter, we're going to get ourselves into position here to fire our guns at this Wickets. And then on top of that, we are going to launch torpedoes at the Wickets as well, yes. Another nice thing I really enjoy about the Clemson is the fact that she has torpedoes on the port and starboard side of the ship. So you can launch all of your torpedoes from the port side, put your ship into a turn, and then launch all of your torpedoes from the starboard. It is really, really awesome. Now, I mean, again, going back to the guns, you can see that this Wickets had no idea what was happening, even though Smithford was reloading his torpedoes. Doesn't matter. The guns on the Clemson are amazing, and we take down the Wickets, and we're sitting at 3 kills now, so this is pretty good. If we take a look at the enemy team composition, we'll notice that all of the enemy destroyers are now destroyed. Smithford himself took out 3 of them, and the 4th one died. One of the other allies must have got him, but we don't have to worry about enemy destroyers anymore, so this is fantastic. So if we're taking a look around the minimap, we can see that there are a lot of enemies up there in the north. It looks like they're trying to do a northern push from the east side, which is fairly typical for this map for the larger ships. Obviously the idea here being to push into the friendly base. Now on Smithford's team down here in the, what is this, southwest where we are, we're heading towards the enemy base now anyway. You can see that there aren't too many allied ships in and around Smithford at this time. We have one friendly destroyer in the enemy cap who is now contesting the cap zone, so decent, but you know, maybe a little too over anxious. We do have Smithford who's kind of coming into the enemy base, or at least looking at the enemy base, right? Assessing the situation, seeing what is going on. So we can see our friendly destroyer is almost dead. We can also see that the friendly destroyer has torpedoes in the water for the Wyoming, and hopefully the Wyoming is actually going to go down. But we do also have a Karlsruhe over there who's on, you know, full health. So we want to keep this in mind. Smithford himself is down to a little under half health, so we want to try to mitigate some of the damage that we're going to be taking here, just to ensure that we stay alive and can do more damage. Because again, at tier 4, this Clemson is quite a little hellion, much like the Isokaze once again. You can expect some great things from both of those destroyers, assuming the captain at the helm is competent. And lucky for us, today we have a competent captain. Smithford knows what he's doing here. So you can see that the friendly destroyer that was in the enemy base contesting it is now gone. That destroyer has died. I think it was a tier 4 Russian destroyer. Anyway, you can see that Smithford is going in and out of the enemy base, right? Just checking to see if he's starting to cap the base. If he does start to cap the base, we know that there are no enemy ships in the cap. However, you know, if it's just being contested, then we know that there is still an enemy ship there. Now, we saw the Karlsruhe, so the Karlsruhe is probably still around. Now, we're going to start lining up and eyeing down this Kuma. Look at this Kuma. I didn't know what this guy with this Kuma was doing. I mean, clearly the Kuma wasn't paying attention to the minimap and never saw Smithford sneak up on him like this. Smithford, in fact, is able to get 3 full salvos off at the Kuma before the Kuma even returns fire. Look at this. The Kuma is now in and behind cover, so we can't get any more shots off, but the Kuma still doesn't really know what's going on and has taken more damage. So Smithford is going to make use of his cover here that he has on the port side of the ship, and he's going to line himself up once again to start strafing this Kuma. If we can get this Kuma down, this would be fantastic. So the Kuma does now seem to see Smithford, right? He's turning into the shot, so he is taking some evasive action here, but the Kuma is still staying relatively broadside here to Smithford. So Smithford just continues to fire shots at the Kuma. You can see the Kuma has finally returned fire, but it's all for naught. I mean, all of that damage that Smithford did to the Kuma is all adding up now. Kuma is on fire. We have some shots going out just to finish off the Kuma here, and there we go. Kuma is gone, and now Smithford is sitting on 4 kills. Fantastic. So we're going to try and go for the Kraken here. We can see a St. Louis off in the distance. St. Louis, even though, I mean, this is, a tier 4 match, St. Louis is still a threat at tier 4, and it's because of the number of guns that the St. Louis has on her and the ability of the St. Louis to just set you on fire and keep you on fire. So this is something you're going to want to avoid. Now, the St. Louis is firing back at Smithford. We can't see it because Smithford is zoomed in while he's firing his guns, rightly so, but he is actually taking evasive maneuver. If we take a look at the mini-map, you can see that Smithford is jostling his ship from port to starboard, throwing off the aim of the St. Louis captain, which is really, really good. It's working out really well for him. You can see, I mean, the St. Louis is returning fire as much as the player possibly can, but Smithford has excellent guns on this Clemson and has set the St. Louis on fire. So now it's all going downhill here for the St. Louis. The St. Louis is turning away. You can see trying to get himself into the situation. Obviously the fire is still burning, so the St. Louis isn't able to put it out. There goes the St. Louis, and Smithford just got himself a Kraken. Fantastic job, by the way. So we still have 4 enemy ships remaining. Smithford is sitting on 5 kills. Decent, right? And we're taking a look around to see what else we can do. Now, given that we're so close to the enemy base, Smithford decides to turn back towards the enemy base, and we're going to try and deal with the Karlsruhe now. We can see the Karlsruhe there off in the distance, and we're just sort of lining up lining up with cover here to try and make best use of the cover while we approach the Karlsruhe to try and get ourselves in as close as possible. So we are within gun range of the Karlsruhe, and we start engaging the Karlsruhe here immediately. This was another interesting turn of events here as well. Much like the Kuma, the Karlsruhe doesn't seem to acknowledge Smithford and his Clemson, which is really strange. I know that the Karlsruhe is firing off at something in the distance, right? It's actually a friendly Wyoming, I believe, that the Karlsruhe is firing at. Karlsruhe now has switched over and has begun to engage Smithford. All for naught, though. Once again, the Karlsruhe is on fire, taking a bunch of damage here. We can see the guns on the way out for the Karlsruhe. We saw some shots coming in from the friendly Wyoming as well. Smithford gets himself a nice Confederate here, which is fantastic, and keeps the fire going into the Karlsruhe. We can see the Karlsruhe is almost gone now. Just a little more bit of damage and we will have this ship gone, and that will actually be Smithford's 5th kill. So final shots are going in, the Karlsruhe is burning away, and there she goes. Karlsruhe is gone, Smithford is now on 6 kills. Yes, God. Anyway, this was a bit of a surprise for me, because I when I was watching the replay, I was like, oh, he just killed the Karlsruhe, that was awesome. What is he going to go for next? I didn't see the Langley until Smithford started to zoom in on her, and then I was like, alright, this is going to be awesome. So we see the Langley, and the Langley is fairly helpless. Need to keep in mind, though, we do have a friendly battleship with us as well, right? So this friendly battleship is going to be helping us out on the Langley. Smithford is engaging the Langley as much as he possibly can, and closing the distance with the Langley, right, to try and open up the option of firing torpedoes off at the Langley. I'm not 100% sure what the range is on the Clemson torpedoes. I want to say 5.5, but I'm not 100% sure, frankly. I never kept my Clemson. I did really think about it, though, but I never actually kept her. I might have to go back and buy her along with the Yoshikaze, who knows. Anyway, torpedoes are on the way out for the Langley, and shots continue to go into the Langley, so fantastic. Now, we do see some incoming shots from the friendly battleship, right? So keep that in mind. We have the 2 ships attempting to take out this Langley here. So we see the torpedoes that Smithford has launched. Ooh, they were close, and unfortunately we can see it's just scraping by the stern of the ship there. The Langley did manage to splice the torpedoes, but now we have more torpedoes on the way, right, from the other side of the ship. So fantastic. So the Langley is almost gone. We have our torpedoes coming in. It does look like some of those are going to hit. Yeah, friendly battleship got the kill on the Langley. So at this point, I was like, oh my god, what is going on? Where is Smithford going to get the kill? But then, yeah, we do have this enemy Wyoming who is eyeing us down here. So we're going to make a run on this enemy Wyoming here. Enemy Wyoming is on fairly full health, right? Just maybe a little less than a quarter health gone. So this is going to be an instance where we do have to torpedo the Wyoming here. It's just going to have to happen. Our guns and setting fires is going to do a lot of damage, and it's going to get us to a certain spot, but the torpedoes are going to finish it off that much quicker for us. So we're firing in at the Wyoming, and we're taking evasive actions once again. If you do watch the minimap, you can see that Smithford once again is jostling his ship from port to starboard to throw off the aim of the enemy Wyoming. So we're now within torpedo range. We're going to line up some torpedoes and fire both spreads off from the port side of the ship, that's right, and the Wyoming is immediately going to take evasive action. Now this is why I really do enjoy having torpedoes on the port and starboard side, because even though the Wyoming avoided the torpedoes we had from the from the port side, we still do have torpedoes on the starboard side. So we're launching 6 more torpedoes off the Wyoming. The Wyoming gets a lucky shot, or well, nice shot I should say, off at Smithford and takes out Smithford, but the torpedoes are still coming there we go. That is Smithford's 7th kill. He gets the high caliber, the devastating strike, and is but a flesh wound with the 1 kill. Fantastic job. This was quite the replay, I gotta say. Anyway, now the Smithford is gone. We're just taking a look around, right, seeing what's still left. So the one battleship, not the pink battleship, but the other battleship that we have on the team is AFK. So this is unfortunate. However, Smithford's team is still all over this. We still have a CV, we've got a Hosho, and we still have the pink Wyoming. So we're switching over to the Hosho here. We're going to take a look and sort of watch what happens. Now we can see the friendly battleship who is AFK, which is very unfortunate, but we do see the enemy battleship taking shots off at our friendly battleship, and our friendly battleship returning fire at the enemy battleship. So this is pretty good. Hopefully the friendly battleship will be able to distract the enemy of Wyoming enough that the torpedo bombers, which are on the way, are going to be able to do something. Now, something that I wish we were able to do here in the replay system, maybe we are able to do it and I just wasn't able to do it because the replay was submitted for the Clemson and not the Hosho, but I would really like to be able to follow those torpedo bombers just to see, right? I mean, we can kind of see it off here in the distance, but from a distance, it really looks as though those torpedoes were complete misses. It just looks like they were just total and utter misses, right? And it was like, now we gotta wait for those planes to come back, rearm, and go back out to the Wyoming. But we still do have our friendly Wyoming who's still alive, and we can see the shots are still going into the enemy of Wyoming here, so still have a bit of a chance here. So we're going to continue to monitor the battle here, see how it goes, while the friendly torpedo bombers are coming back and landing and rearming on the Hosho. Now, I don't have an aircraft carrier, and I've been thinking about it for quite some time, about getting an aircraft carrier. I'm still on the fence about it, to be totally honest. What's holding me back is the aircraft carrier interface system, right? The way it's a top-down approach, sort of like a real-time strategy. If I want to play real-time strategy, I'm going to play Hearts of Iron 4. If I want to play ships, I want to actually captain my ship and fire guns at other enemy ships. So that's really why I haven't been taken out the enemy aircraft, taken out aircraft carriers at all. At first, it was because the aircraft carriers were a little broken. Wargaming has since made some changes, for better or for worse. But regardless, I've still been thinking about getting an aircraft carrier, but it's probably going to be a little while away still. I really want that Hindenburg first, to be totally honest, and then maybe the Tier 7 Russian cruiser. There's a lot of things ahead of getting an aircraft carrier, but whatever. Friendly torpedo bombers are on the way for the enemy Wyoming. We can see that we just lost our friendly Wyoming, so that is kind of tragic. But we do have, or at least I had some high hopes here for these torpedo bombers, for them to come in and go ahead and take out the Wyoming. Now the torpedo bombers do hit the Wyoming. It's hard to see here because we see the overlapping of the AFK friendly battleship as well, but we can kind of see it now. We did hit the Wyoming with 1 torpedo, and the Wyoming only needs to get hit with 1 more torpedo, and we will have victory. So we can see the torpedo bombers making their run right now. Hopefully these are going to hit. My fingers were crossed, but again, from this angle, it just looks like those torpedoes are total misses, right? Just total misses there. So yeah, we have to wait a little longer before we can take out this enemy Wyoming. Now the friendly Hosho has made it all the way down to the corner of the map here and has stopped. Now I was wondering whether or not the Hosho was actually being spotted. I don't think it was, right? Because if it was being spotted, we would definitely see incoming shots from the Wyoming, and the Wyoming isn't firing at the Hosho, so I really don't think this Hosho is spotted. I'm not 100% sure if I would see that in the replay or not. Whatever, he's not taking shots, so I'm going to say that the Hosho is not spotted. But we're just launching our more torpedo bombers off at the Wyoming. So these are going to be the one, at least my fingers are crossed. We can see 2 more torpedo bombers on the way out for the Wyoming as well. It was nice to see that the enemy Wyoming was, didn't seem to be aware of the AFK BB. and instead is, basically sailing straight towards the Hosho here in an attempt, obviously, to take out the Hosho. But we do have torpedo bombers in the air, and this, I mean, again, because of the angles involved, we can't really see it 100%, but it does definitely look as though this carrier captain had enough and had decided to bait the enemy Wyoming. So we can see one torpedo bomber squadron is coming in from the north, or from the east, I guess, and the other one is coming in from the west. So there's nothing that this enemy Wyoming is going to be able to do. So we can see the torpedoes from the east attack are in the water, torpedoes from the west attack are also in the water. This is getting a nice little crisscross, and there we go. Enemy Wyoming is gone. Fantastic. So this is victory. We can see the results here. So we got a Confederate, a Kraken, 2 devastating strikes. We got a high caliber, a devastating strike. And it's about a flesh wound. We did 103,000 damage in a tier 4 match. 226,000 credits, 3,100 experience, 7 kills, 6 torpedo hits, 204 main gun hits. No surprise here, Smithford does end top of the team with just over 2,000 base experience, and obviously that is a lot more than double the highest earning experience player on the enemy team, which is fantastic. Oh, one thing I didn't notice, I'm just noticing it now, it looks like the rank of the players are actually in the thing. Yeah, I gotta play some ships this weekend. I gotta do some ranked battles. Poot ahead, if you're watching this, I'm going to send you a text and let you know when I'm ready to go for some ranked battles. We'll see what's going on there anyway. So that is today's video. I do hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember to hit the old like button if you did like today's video. Remember to hit subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and to leave any comments you have for me. I really love reading those comments and getting a little conversation going in the video, even if the conversation surrounds my own stupidity. That's cool. Anyway, as always, folks, I do hope you enjoy the rest of your day.